$1.5 million barn renovation for the Cropsey barn.
Mm-hmm.
You know that the county and the town of Clarkstown spent 61-39%, with the county being the greater proportion of the $1.5 million renovation. And the way I see that is a pretty good investment into not just putting a building back together, but creating an economic stimulus, which is a lot of what we talk about every week because of the vulnerability of retail. Here you have a structure that, in addition to preserving a special piece of Rockland's history, becomes a catalyst for what's known as agritourism and heritage tourism. And also the opportunity for the Rockland Farm Alliance to build out its farm store and become much more dynamic in the way that it draws people in, interfaces with the community. A solid standing structure, excuse me, although it doesn't have heat, still for 3 seasons can be a place for festivals or farm dinners, the sort of, crafts events, lectures, parties, events, anything like that. This is the sort of thing that that goes on in Dutchess and Ulster County, and these are they're economic engines. Not so much purely, let's say, for the tax base, but if you're drawing people from the city who can come up to Rockland and stop on a farm and see the animals and see the crops and there's a focus, a target, something to do, they may not need to go as far as Orange or Ulster on this side of the river. So we did a story that just looks at the greater meaning of the renovation of the barn through the lens of economic stimulus. And similarly, the Hudson Valley Market, which is part of the RCC Culinary Center in Nyack on Main Street, had its official opening on, when was that? Thursday or Friday, I can't remember what day that was. Thursday, I think. And it kind of falls under a similar umbrella where, here this is a new market. And so seemingly it's a very nice, upscale, organic, locally sourced market. But I would argue that I'd argue the same thing, that it's more than just a market, just as the renovation of the barn is more than just a barn. The market also is something that is dynamic, and it is something that can bring people to Nyack, can bring people to Rockland. The whole culinary center, is geared up for education, learning, interactivity, teaching the greater public about locally sourced products. It incorporated partners like Java Love, which had its opening on Friday in Suffern, the new coffee shop. So I think that these two additions to the county are good additions. When we contrast this to the empty stores and the tiredness of the Route 59 corridor and that which is either sitting empty or replacing what we've got there, I think these two entities are an interesting contrast. And I would just add into this conversation a third story that we put up last week is that Bob's Furniture had been vacant for about a year. That's up in again in Nanuet on that corridor. And what's going into that 30,000 square foot space is a car dealership, a Volkswagen. On the one hand, it's good news that an empty space is being filled, but I don't know, a car dealership on Route 59, it keeps begging the question of where is Route 59 going. So
I'm not sure why that's a bad thing. What's wrong with having a car dealership on Route 59?
Well, it replaces, we seem to have most of our car dealerships clustered on 304, right?
Yeah, so what's wrong with having it on 59 then? Why? What should they have to be clustered, or you're saying they should be clustered, or it's bad to spread them out?
I don't know that I have an opinion one way or the other. It just it indicates that it's maybe harder to fill these very large spaces with traditional apparel or retail.
Yeah, but if you could fill them with something else, why not?
I know. No.
Right, that's a good thing.
I think that anything that sustains the tax base is a good thing.
Yeah, right. Okay, good. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of a look at what happened over last week from the Rockland County Business Journal's point of view. What do you guys think of all that?
I don't know. It's just we are in a state of flux. I like what you said about the barn, though. Hey, Rockland County can go back to its roots in a sense. If that, and now that project is approved, right?
It's already done.
Good,
the whole barn's
good.
been renovated. It
Good.
really is beautiful. The RFA, the Rockland Farm Alliance, largely had been selling its crops through something called a CSA, community. It's community supported agriculture, where people would buy a share in the crops, and they would, each week get a certain allotment. And I think that the renovation of this barn is going to bring a lot more attention, a lot more support, and with their plans to really fill out and develop this farm store, as John McDowell talked about and is in the story, I think it's going to be something. I think it's going to be a good addition to the county, and also a draw to people from the outside.
If you have,
we barely have any agriculture left in this county.
Right. If you have something that you would or you would like to check the Rockland Business Journal frequently, because articles are updated all the time, all you do is you go to the website, strictly internet publication. It's RCBiz, B-I-Z Journal, right?
RCBizJournal.com.
Hey, Tina, thanks a lot.